Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pseudoscientific Conference, annual event held by the English department. My name is Sergei Pankratov, and I'm going to be the host of today's event. The aim of the conference is to practice and develop public performance skills, which are necessary for the further scientific activity, namely international conference performances. Today we have 13 speakers on the agenda. The first speaker is the real fan of pseudoscience, Shampletov Nikita. You're welcome to start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shampletov Nikita. I'm a third-year undergraduate student of the Faculty of Physics, and my specialization is atomic optics. Today, I'm going to share with you some breakthrough ideas of unrecognized Russian scientist Rybnikov Yuri Stepanovich. Here is the structure of my talk. Firstly, I will start with introduction. Secondly, I will show you the arithmetics of ancient Russians. Thirdly, I will describe the true periodic table. Then we will discuss the ancient Russian periodic table. And finally, I will make a conclusion. So let's start with the introduction. Rybnikov Yuri Stepanovich is a Russian genius, docent, doctor of technical sciences, the creator of the unified field theory, and the creator of the periodic system of ancient Russians. He has unified physics, chemistry, electricity, and arithmetics into the methodology of constructing electronic structures of electroatoms. Yuri Stepanovich believes that there is the worldwide conspiracy and that we all are zombied by false science, recognized as the true one. He provides excellent evidence of unfitness of actual scientific ideas and presents his own ideas. So let's pass over to the arithmetics of ancient Russians. It's incredibly disappointing that most people cannot understand that they are zombied by modern education system. Also, they cannot recognize the pure truth that there is only one right arithmetics, namely the arithmetics of ancient Russians. This true arithmetics starts with definition of elementary values, namely ноль, целковый, полушка, четвертушка, осьмушка, пудовичок, and so on, representing 0, 1, a half, a quarter, 1/8, 1/16, and so on respectively. This true system has no division operation, so that is not just a notation, that's an alternative math. Also, this arithmetics is known as binary or computer arithmetics. That proves that exactly ancient Russians had invented computers. By the way, the Arctic Ocean had been dug by ancient Russians too. There is another interesting fact. It seems like that arithmetics is the oldest one. So even the worldwide math had started only after Euler brought the Russian knowledge to Europe. Okay, now let's look at the Mendeleev table. In the periodic table of 1902-1906, Mendeleev introduced a zero period consisting of one inert gas atom X and a zero group consisting of two inert gas atoms X and Y and subsequent inert gases like helium-9 and so on. Today, the correct table can be found only in original sources like the Principles of Chemistry. And modern scientific books and magazines grossly violate Mendeleev's copyright because a zero group had been transferred to the eighth group, and the zero period had been excluded at all. Predicted by Dmitry Ivanovich, two inert gas atoms X and Y didn't fit into the Rutherford-Bohr planetary model, and also that prediction has questioned the discovery, the Thomson's discovery of electron. So probably exactly that's why immediately after Mendeleev's death, some necessary corrections had been done in the table. Here you can see true tables, original tables, which are forbidden to show. So I'm risking to show this, but I think the truth is higher than freedom. So let's continue. Here you can see a zero period consisting of one atom X and a zero group consisting of X, Y, helium-9, and so on. These two systems, these two tables correspond to only the Russian periodic system. Well, let's speak about that system, also known as Russian Orthodox Elementary System of the unity of the periodicity of the electroatoms of the universe. So, even ancient Greeks knew that sphere is the perfect shape. Of course, ancient Russians also knew that. Let's look at the picture, the left one. That is a screen from original work of Yuri Stepanovich. Here you can see atoms having a structure of Russian nesting doll. Now it's clear that that atoms can be described by the arithmetics of ancient Russians, of course. Indeed, each electroatom can be described by a certain number of spheres. For example, in the right picture, we have Sirot, consisting of one big sphere representing nol or 0. Then we have Pervorot, consisting of one big sphere, nol, and two little spheres representing Palushka, because Palushka is a half, and here we have two halves, and so on. And now, dear colleagues, I'm ready to make a conclusion. My goal was to uncover the painful truth about our zombification conducted by the modern education system, and I hope I've succeeded in it. To sum up, today I've told you that science is a lie and total falsification. Also, I've told you that there is only one right knowledge, namely the knowledge of ancient Russians. There are also many astonishing revelations conducted by Rybnikov Yuri Stepanovich, so I strongly recommend you to visit his website www.sirot.com and see many interesting stuff. So eventually, my presentation has come to its logical end. Thank you for your attention. In case there are any questions, I am ready to answer them.
Okay, and Ben, if science is a lie, maybe the speed of light is not 300,000 kilometers per second?
Yes, of course. Everyone should know that the speed of light is equal to 0. So just let's imagine a burning candle that we handle, and we just stay calmly, and we stay with the candle. The fire spot and the light stays with us. It doesn't move. So it's now obvious that the speed of light is equal to 0.
Thank you, Nikita. You have raised some very interesting topics. So now we have something to think about.
Thank you.
So another subject I find exciting is time traveling, and I will be the next reporter. So let me show you my screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
So let's start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. My name is
Good evening.
Oh,
Good
sorry.
evening.
Good evening. Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sergey Pankratov, and I am a third-year student of Moscow State University Physics Faculty, Semiconductors and Cryo-Electronics Department. My secret is that I'm from the future, although I don't have a time machine. The fact is that my hometown is Yekaterinburg, and local time there is 2 hours ahead. And today, I'm going to tell you about time traveling, as you have already guessed. So now let's look at the plan of my speech. At the beginning, I'll tell you about the fundamental traveling issues and paradoxes. Then I'll consider available ways for time traveling. And after that, I'm going to outline promising ways for time traveling. Afterwards, I'll represent my alternative theory of the origin of life on the Earth, and in the end, I'll make a conclusion. Dear colleagues, now I'm ready to start. The ability to travel in time has given rise to long discussions between physicists, conspiracy theories, and trend TV stuff. Some of them say time traveling has incredible destructive power that can kill not only a poor traveler but annihilate the entire universe. The others say it's absolutely safe, but it can be either controllable, namely past can be changed, thereby influencing the future, or uncontrollable, which means there is no possible way to change the past. The first idea is based on the principle of causality, the latter on Novikov's principle of self-consistency. Let's have a closer look at them. Causality is the relationship between causes and effects. This principle states that an event A can affect another event B, provided B is happened before A, and the influence speed is less than the speed of light. Pretty easy, isn't it? The principle of self-consistency asserts that if an event that would cause a paradox or any change to the past exists, then the probability of that event is zero. Thus, it would be impossible to create time paradoxes. These statements divided researchers into controlled and uncontrolled time travel supporters. However, they both strive to avoid temporary paradoxes of two types. The first type is a consistency paradox. I will consider it using the example of the paradox of killed grandfather. A time traveler goes to the past and kills his grandfather there before he meets his wife. It means that one of their parents and the traveler himself will be never born, which in turn means that the grandfather will be alive. This situation is prohibited by Novikov's principle. The second one is causal loop. Imagine a billiard ball with a straight origin trajectory. Suddenly, the same ball emerges from the future, collides with its past self. You can see it here. With its past self, changing its trajectory. Changed trajectory causes the ball to enter and exit a time machine in exactly the same way to change the trajectory. The changed trajectory is its own cause, without an origin, which is prohibited by the causality principle. I have told you why the paradoxes are impossible to happen, so let's move to the next part of my report. If I say you are moving in time right now at the speed of an hour per hour, I suppose you wouldn't be very surprised. In fact, you travel in time regularly, and the oldest time machine is a book, and it can take you to the past or to the future or even to a parallel universe. Another example is cinema. However, a book or a movie ends sooner or later, so the humanity created the most effective and ruthless mechanisms, social networks. Have you ever entered an application at 11 p.m. and after an hour you looked into your clock and it was 3 a.m. there? This is the effect of the traveling to the future. On average, a person spends approximately 2 hours chatting or watching, and it takes him about 6.5 aimless years from his entire life. Awful number. It's also possible to travel in time moving from one time zone to another, as I have said before. Another well-known but not tested option is cryopreservation. Thus, we have moved on to hypothetically possible ways to travel in time. Every physicist knows that time is relative. Special theory of relativity states that all physical processes in a moving body are slower than they should be for a stationary body. We even can get an estimate for the relativistic time dilation using the Lorentz transformation. This time dilation is proved for astronauts on ISS, but the effect is negligible. Another well-known example is gravitational time dilation. An actual difference of elapsed time between two events is measured by observers situated at varying distances from a gravitating mass. According to this mechanism, the core of the Earth is 2.5 years younger than the outer layers. Let's move to more exotic options. Frank Tipler described an interesting opportunity for time travel in 1964. His assumption is based on Einstein's equation and consists of the idea of distorting space-time rotating ultra-large cylinder. You can see it here. It bends space-time so that a spacecraft driving circles around the cylinder can travel back in time. This method has two important details. Firstly, the cylinder must have infinite dimensions. Secondly, it's not possible only for one-way travel. According to Israel scientist Amos Ori, space can be twisted enough to create a local gravitational field that resembles a donut. The gravitational field forms circles around this donut, so space and time are tightly twisted. Ori says mathematics has shown that at regular intervals of time machine will form inside the donut in a vacuum. In theory, it would be possible to set off at any point in time since the machine was built. A time machine can create incredible time loops. Imagine that a spaceship passes through a time tunnel. For some unknown reason, it crashed and brought life on an inhabited planet that will be named the Earth. Thus, humanity became the cause of the emergence of itself, which is not prohibited by the principle of subconsistence. Think about it. Let's move to the conclusion. We have considered the main time traveling problems and their possible solutions. We have also reviewed available and promising ways to travel in time. I have offered you an alternative theory of the origin of life on the Earth. And while you were listening to me, you moved in time by 10 minutes approximately. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you very much. Thank you
I have a
very
question
much.
for you. Good evening, good afternoon. I have a question for you. Do you think it is enough for a time machine to build a T-plus cylinder?
Actually, the answer is yes, but the problem is that the cylinder, T-plus cylinder, has infinite dimensions. It's infinite, so we can build it. Maybe somewhere in space, the same structure exists, but we don't know. So the answer is yes, but how to make this cylinder, we don't know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So if there are no questions left, I will end my presentation. So anyway, time traveling is regularly faced with many paradoxes and problems. Problems appear regularly, and we need to be able to solve them. The entire process of education is built on this postulate. Now it's time to hand it over to a man who understands the topic well. Let's greet Vladimir Kuratsev.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vladimir Kuratsev, and I am a third year undergraduate student of Moscow State University, Physics Department. I specialize in biophysics. My purpose this evening is to share a presentation about extremely interesting observation with you. Here is the structure of my talk. Firstly, I start with introduction. Then I will tell you something about some notable observations concerning non-students of our faculty. The most important part of my speech will be about biochemical explanation of such observations. And finally, I will try to make a conclusion. Since we have extremely limited time today, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. On the slide, you can see two photos. On the top photo, there are a lot of first-year undergraduate students of physics department at the first lecture, whereas on the bottom, you can recognize 2019 graduates. I have one simple question. What is the difference between these people? I guess that your first point will be that graduates look tired without sparkles in their eyes, while new generation is full of motivation, dreams, and illusions. Is this question so easy, or are there any pitfalls? Hypothesis of this work is that graduates, senior students, have much more work capacity than juniors because they have overcome a lot of difficulties on the way to knowledge. The results of my work are based on observations and elementary biochemical explanation. You should understand observations should be analyzed with the help of big data methods to get more reliable results. It's a goal of future science works. My purpose is to figure out the key patterns and explain them in general, using biophysical theory. Let us now talk about types of students. It's not a secret there are three big groups of students in our faculty: DEM students, resonance students, and normal students. Even though education is an individual process, the main parameter for this division is dynamics of work capacity during semester. DEM students have a specific point on a plot with null value of W, which is work capacity, between the start of credits and the end of the session. Resonance students have less work capacity during the first and the second part of semester, but there are some peaks after the start of credits. The main feature of this group is 2 or 3 peaks in the new semester. Normal students don't have these resonances and null points. Common feature of all types of students is high frequency fluctuations of W during period of credits and session, and the extremum value at the beginning of new semester. On the next slide, you can notice an important difference between plot of for a third-year undergraduate student and a first-year undergraduate student. You can see the first plot is much higher. Moreover, this tendency of work capacity increase with the increase of course number is common for all types of students. This observation proves my hypothesis. It's something like evolutionary process. So we have a principal question. How can this tendency be explained? To begin with, I should say that all information of the correct work of our organisms is coded by DNA molecules. Under the influence of the environment, gene sequences can be changed. The new sequences are called phenotypes, and they reflect organisms' adaptation to environmental conditions. Let us now talk especially about students of physics department. All students are under the pressure of the continuous educational process, so their genotypes are transformed during the education and phenotypes are formed. Modern laser microscope technologies allow us to see special phenotypes of students. Each phenotype has its code name, as you can see in the picture. All considerate patterns and observations allow us to make a prediction that all students, take me for example, will become someone like him. The calculations show that it can be achieved during 50 years of continuous education. In conclusion, the following main result was obtained. With physics department, students become more and more stronger. Don't forget about simple truths, which you can see on the slide. You can make your dream come true using physics, no doubt. Just try and you will never regret, I swear. Thank you for your patience and attention. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Thank you, Vladimir. I have a question. The question is, what is the difference between phenotype and genotype?
Thank you for your question. General information about organisms is coded by gene sequences. Under the influence of the environment, gene sequences or genotype can be changed. The new sequences are called phenotypes, and they reflect organisms' adaptation to environmental conditions. I think that's all.
Thank you. Quite clear. So if there are no extra questions, this was a very interesting presentation. Thank you, Vladimir. Saying the word education, we immediately recall our alma mater. And what is the coziest place in the university besides reading rooms and lecture halls? The dining room, of course. And the next speaker was inspired by a canteen meal. Mikhailov Pavel, you are welcome to start.
Can you hear me? Can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I can start. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mikhail Pavel. I am a third-year undergraduate student of physics faculty of Moscow State University. I specialize in physics of semiconductors and cryoelectronics. Today, I'm going to present you the exploration of what physical processes appear in a cutlet under extreme conditions. Here you can see the structure of my report. Firstly, I would like to tell you a few words about the objects of study. Secondly, I will shed some light on about the object of study. Thirdly, I will focus on the cutting-edge research area in the field of extreme conditions. And last, I will emphasize the importance of this direction of research for the fundamental physics and will make a conclusion. Dear colleagues, so let's begin. First of all, I would like to give the definition of what a cutlet is. According to the fundamentals of cooking, it is a slice of meat that besides can be laced with some filling. However, it is not true. In order to study this system, we need a more generalized definition. An extreme condition cutlet is an object that is equivalent to usual cutlet for an outside observer at normal conditions and fundamentally different under extreme conditions for an inside observer. Here you can see the division of cutlets into different types. There are continuum cutlets and non-homogeneous ones that therefore can be divided into those with inclusions and with homogeneous nuclei, solid or liquid. Continuum cutlets can be described by laws of continuous metamechanics. Other two types require quantum theory and astrophysics respectively. Dear colleagues, please pay your attention to the evolution diagram of a cutlet shown on this slide. As we heat cutlet in a microwave oven, it has constant rotations per minute in the temperature range from 1 to 100 degrees of Celsius. This is a classic result. Besides, this part of the curve is in agreement with theoretical predictions. But as we continue to heat the cutlet and bring it into the magnetic field, the experimental data is at variance with theoretical one. Theory predicts that the cutlet will rotate with a constant RPM before it explodes due to overheating. But experimental data shows us that the dependency doesn't look anything like a constant. It is similar to harmonic oscillator dependency and later has a special form of nonlinear dependence. And you can ask me, why is this curve called the evolution curve? The answer is quite simple. Just look at the right part of the dependency. Based on it, we can conclude that when temperature rapidly increases up to million Celsius, the RPM of the cutlet decreases. That means that cutlet is expanding in the space. Besides, at those temperatures, we have enough pressure so that to begin the fusion process, similar as inside the sun. In other words, cutlet evolves into a compact star. Let's change the topic a bit and speak about mechanisms of interaction in the cutlet shell. How do you think? What part of the cutlet plays an exceptional role for the existence of the cutlet under such extreme conditions? Right you are, it is the shell. One of the hypotheses is formation of charged relativistic particles moving in the shell. Under the Lorentz force in the external magnetic field, these particles compress the shell so that it doesn't break. These hypothetical particles are called cutletons. The motion of cutletons leads to the formation of a strong magnetic field inside the shell. I'm sorry, okay. Therefore, the intrinsic magnetic moments of the particles in the inner part become directed along the strong magnetic field. And a general non-zero magnetic moment arises. This, in turn, due to the charge of the cutlet, will lead to the appearance of non-zero mechanical moment, which turns into rotation. Another one hypothesis is occurrence of confinement phenomena. Applied to the given physical system, two colored points of the cutlet will tend to get closer to each other. If you read ingredients list of a cutlet, you can see that manufacturer adds some dye to cutlets, red, green, or blue. Direction, particles of the cutlet will tend to be attracted to each other, and that's why the shell is so strong. On the slide, you can see the representation of Cartlet confinement. According to quantum chromodynamics, the density of Lagrange function of a Cartlet can easily be written as on the slide. Let's pass over to some applications of the theory in fundamental physics. Due to its unique properties, Cartlets appear to be extremely useful in different areas of physics. For example, taking into account the magnetic field that can be created inside the Cartlet, it is possible to make a compact magnetar for further exploration. Cartlets can be applied to making compact sources of huge amount of energy that is extremely important for interplanetary flights through space. Besides, further exploration of Cartlets may result in scientific breakthroughs in fundamental physics. Dear colleagues, my report has come to its logical end. I do hope that during my talk, I expanded your knowledge of objects familiar to us that can have drastically different characteristics in unusual conditions. That sounds great. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question. Please tell me, what are the main characteristics of Cartletons?
Okay. The main feature of these particles is that they are only hypothetic. It is predicted Cartletons to interact either with strong forces or with another type of forces that hasn't been discovered yet. It's caused by the nature of motion of these particles. As they move rapidly in a compact space, they have to be strongly connected with each other so that not to scatter from the Cartlet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It was an appetizing presentation. However, the public is waiting for both bread and circuses. The bread has just been given. Greetings to the next speaker, Max Anivkin, and his defiant report.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxim Lenivkin. I am a third-year undergraduate student of physics faculty of MSU. And my research team has recently come up with a real groundbreaking discovery. We truly believe that Earth is flat. And today, I'm going to open your eyes and show the hard truth. First of all, the flaws of spherical model are obvious. In fact, almost anybody who has an ability of critical thinking has asked them, why don't people on the other part of the planet don't fall into space? Why don't people on the opposite side of planet fall into space? Why don't Australians walk on their hand? So modern science still fails to distantly explain such gaps in theory. So moreover, everybody knows that all photos of Earth are actually fake. If you look at these pictures, it becomes obvious that it's all lie. Anyway, I believe that first of all, we must be frank and just look at the window. What do you see? What do you feel? Do you really think that you're on a spinning ball? As you can see, the modern theory seems to be just a fraud. The government and big companies try to fool us, and we can't be so naive. Therefore, I suggest a novel theory that won't have all these flaws. And this is how I come up with a theory which seems more clear and simple than any other. And I speak about the flat earth theory. I don't want you to be fooled. That is why I suggest that you should just listen to my evidence and then make your own conclusions. So to begin with, just look at the flag of United Nations. What do you see? This is obviously the model of flat Earth. This is how I believe Earth really looks like. Such facts show that governments actually know about the true shape of Earth. Nonetheless, they still try to fool people. My observations and experimental data prove that we actually live on a flat disk centered at the North Pole, and it's bounded along its southern edge with a wall of ice. It's moving with acceleration, which actually explains gravity much better than any other contemporary theory. I'm still not sure what happens beneath the disk, but probably there are just some big elephants and a turtle with a jet engine. Moreover, multiple evidence clearly show that Sun and Moon are only 3 kilometers above the Earth, and that what we consider outer space is only 5 kilometers above the Earth. Just look at these pictures. Such phenomena would not be possible if we stick to our modern scientific worldview. Furthermore, some simple calculations ideally confirm my theory. But why would governments lie to us? The answer is pretty simple. They just want to steal our taxes. Space programs require a vast amount of money, but in fact, all these investments go straight to the pockets of corrupted politicians. So, in conclusion, I'd like to emphasize that my theory manages to explain a great number of phenomena. It's clear and easy to understand. As I have shown, it's only superior to any other modern theory. Nonetheless, I do not claim that you should blindly believe me. I encourage you to think for yourself and analyze facts and make your own conclusions. I am sure that eventually you understand that I have been right just from the beginning. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Maxim. That was funny, but we had enough jokes. We are turning to the dark and scary page of our conference. The next speaker will tell us about the most mysterious monster, Georgy Bykov. You are welcome to start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start. My name is Georgy Bykov. I'm a third year undergraduate student of physics department, and I specialize in biophysics. Today, I'm going to talk about the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is a cryptid in cryptozoology and Scottish folklore, what is said to inhabit the Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. It is often described as a large, long-necked, and with one or more humps protruding from the water. Here I should give some definitions. The cryptid is an animal whose existence or survival is disputed or unfounded. And cryptozoology is a pseudoscience and some culture that aims to prove the existence of entities from the folklore record. Now we should discuss the main question about Nessie, namely its existence. One of the first evidences of the existence of a monster was in 1934. It was the surgeon's photograph, the first photo of creature's head and neck, supposedly taken by Robert Wilson. According to Wilson, he was looking at the loch when he saw the monster, grabbed his camera and snapped 4 photos. The first photo became well known, you can see it on the picture. Also, you might have seen it before, but in 1994 it was established that the photo was an elaborate hoax, so today we cannot take it into account. But the second, for this time not refuted argument, is sonar readings. In December 1954, sonar readings were taken by the fishing boat Rival 3. Its crew noted a large object keeping pace with the vessel at the depth of 150 meters. It was detected for 800 meters before the contact was lost. Previous sonar attempts were inconclusive or negative. There are much more witnesses and enthusiasts who spend lots of time trying to prove the existence of Nessie. There were several researchers and even organizations devoted to the aim. This organization is called the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau. It was a society formed in 1962 to study Loch Ness, to identify the creature known as the Loch Ness Monster, and determine the causes of reported. Its main activity was encouraging groups of self-funded volunteers to watch the loch from the vantage points with film cameras. It had a caravan camp and the viewing platform and sent observers to other locations up and down the loch. Some efforts led by society gave positive results. For example, the sonar study which took place in 1967, Gordon Tucker, the sonar developer, has chosen Loch Ness as the test site for a prototype sonar transducer with a maximum range of 800 meters. The device was fixed underwater at a bay and directed at the opposite shore, drawing an acoustic net across the loch through which no moving object could pass undetected. During the 2 weeks trial in August, multiple targets were identified. One was probably a shoal of fish, but others moved in a way not typical to shoals at speeds up to 10 knots. it might be the creature we're looking for. Another study was conducted in 1972 by a group of researchers led by Robert Rines. It was similar to the previous study and involved sonar examination of the log depths for unusual activity. Rines took precautions to avoid murky water and floating wooden pit. A submersible camera with a floodlight was deployed to record images below the surface. Camera is shown on the right side of the slide. Also, here is a graph in which the vertical scale is time and horizontal scale is distance. This is how sonar shows us objects. If Rines detected anything on the sonar, he turned the light on and took pictures. When sonar unit detected something for the first time, some researchers interpreted data as highly flexible flattened tail, and some said that it might be a misinterpreted return from two animals swimming together. Sorry. Also, a floodlight camera obtained a pair of underwater photographs. Both depicted what appeared to be a rhomboid flipper. The flipper was photographed in different positions, indicating movement. The first flipper photo is better known than the second, and you can see both photos on the slide on the left side. According to one of team members, the photos were retouched to superimpose the flipper. The original enhancement showed a considerably less distinct object. No one is sure how the originals were altered. After a while, second sonar contact was made, this time with two objects. The strobe camera photographed two large objects surrounded by a flurry of bubbles. Some suggest several large animals living in the Loch Ness, but those photographs has rarely been published, and I didn't manage to find it. At the end of this list, I want to put the most up-to-date research which took place in 2018. An international team of researchers did a DNA survey of a lake looking for unusual species. The results were published in 2019, where there was no DNA of large fish such as sharks and catfish, there was no otter or seal DNA, and a lot of eel DNA was found. No evidence of any reptilian sequences were found, so scientists were sure that there is not a giant reptile swimming in the Loch Ness. However, there is still a chance because Nessie can be not a reptile, but for example, a giant eel. As we can see, research into the mystery of Nessie continues, and despite the fact that not many people currently believe in the Loch Ness monster, there is still a chance to discover something new about the underwater life of the lake. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all. In case you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Yes, I have one question. Does Loch Ness Investigation Bureau still exist?
Oh, no, it doesn't. The society disbanded in 1972.
Thank you.
Thank you for question.
That was a fearful report, thank you. The next speaker will tell us about no less terrible and merciless monsters as well. I wish to call on the next reporter, Alexandra Matveyeva.
Hello, now I'll turn on my presentation. Hello, my name is Matveyeva Alexandra. I'm the first year master student in the Department of Mathematics. And today I'm gonna tell you about new technology for getting rid of cockroaches in the student dormitory in the main building of Moscow State University. Unfortunately, like many other dormitories, the dormitory of main building of Moscow State University isn't free of such a disadvantage as cockroaches. Our little friends staying with us during our preparation for any exam, they can see where we hide the cribs and sometimes share a meal with us. But it is not very pleasant to have a little creatures living near you, which don't chip in for food and lodging and get everything free. In a small dorm room, there is not always enough place for 2 people, so to say nothing of hundreds little friends. But it is not easy to get rid of them. Using chemicals in a small room can evict not only cockroaches, but also yourself. One cockroach generates 20 to 30 cockroaches. Each time the number of neighbors increases 20 to 30 times. You'll never be alone in a dormitory. But what should we do when the number of our mischievous friends increases exponentially? Predatory plants will help us. The room will sparkle with new colors. New green neighbors will help us to relax after a hard work day and will decorate the interior. As there are a lot of cockroaches in the room, the plants won't starve. But it won't take 1 or 2 plants. It will take a little forest of plants. Now, let's consider the main species of predatory plants and choose most suitable for our purposes. Nepenthes. The main difference between Nepenthes and other predatory plants is the size. Its jug can reach more than 30 centimeters in length. It's ideal to capture and digesting not only cockroaches, but also small lizards and even mammals. A sweet aroma will attract our roommates and big jug will easily digest them. Drosophilum. Drosophilum attracts insects with its sweet aroma, but it is not very big, and unfortunately, this plant is very difficult to take care of. The Venus flytrap is a quite small plant, no more than 15 centimeters in length. It many cockroaches, but it will diversify our beautiful collection. Cephalotus. Cephalotus attracts insects with its sweet aroma and then lures them into its jug. It is a very small plant and it is also difficult to take care of. Darlingtonia. Darlingtonia is a truly diabolical plant. Does it not only lures insects into its jug, but it also has a lot of false exits, which cause its doomed victims to make unsuccessful attempts to get free. Darlingtonia prefers dark places. It will be a great helper for catching cockroaches in the dark corners of our room. The main thing is not to forget to water it, or one ally will be less. Now let's make a rating of plants. Nepenthes and Darlingtonia take the first place. They have large jugs and they are the easiest to take care of. Venus flytrap takes the second place because it is not very large. And Drosophilum and Cephalotus take the last place. They are small and they are difficult plants to take care of. Now let's build mathematical model to understand how many plants we need. We use predator-prey system where X is the number of preys, Y is the number of predators, and T is time. When predator and prey meet, the prey is killed with coefficient beta. The well-fed predators are capable for reproduction with coefficient delta. since the cockroaches themselves crawl into the jug, we'll consider that beta is equal 1. The number of predators is the number of drugs on the plants. The reproduction rate of cockroaches alpha is equal 30. Solving the system, we get that x is equal x with 0 index multiplied by exponent to the power of 13 minus m multiplied by t. We assume that at the beginning there were 100 cockroaches in our room. We need the exponent power to be negative to decrease the number of cockroaches. Taking into account that there are 4 to 5 jugs on a plant, we get that we need 6 to 8 plants. House plants make our room cozy, and predatory house plants may help us to get rid of little uninvited guests. With new green neighbors, cockroaches will realize that they are not welcome here and will have to find a new home. Something go wrong. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions? You may ask them.
Thank you, Alexandra. Actually, I have a question. How much does a carnivorous plant cost?
Oh, it costs 1,000 rubles.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. In my opinion, cockroaches are not the only one trouble of the main building dormitory. I live in this dormitory and I know it is hot there in summer and it's cold in winter. However, the next speaker will tell us how to control heat transfer. I hope so. I give the floor to Anwar Hazifov.
So let's start. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anwar Hafizov and I'm ex-MIFI student. So today I'm going to talk about the bullshit theory, transferring of heat estimation, breaking university literally lovely settlement of housing in thermal temperature. So the question is how to be an excellent, successful student. There are this question probably everybody asks himself, at least at the first years of education, before finding out how many does Russian physicists gain. But the answer is on the surface. To be talented and work hard. So as regards the talent, that I consider that nobody has a problem with that over here. But what about to work hard? There are diverse factors that can impact the quality of labor. But today we're going to talk about merely one of them, the temperature. Basically, the temperature spans between 17 and 27 degrees, which is comfortable for work. But what if the temperature is abnormal? So if we assume that the temperature is quite low, is below the normal temperature, so it apparently will lead to the blood circulation speed slowing down. That probably will cause a lack of nutrient materials in our brain, so we can feel low brain activity and procrastination. For a gentleman over here, it will be double trouble because they, apart from low grades at the university, they will have a high risk of getting an invitation of a great military service. If the temperature is too high, it can cause a lack of oxygen in our brain. So it therefore could cause an overworking process. So you will have a great opportunity to meet with your idols like Albert Einstein or Max Planck and so forth and so on, but in a nut house. By the way, thanks to those MIPT students that have proved this theory on a regular basis. As you can see, the problem is too significant to tackle it in general. So let's solve it only in a particular case of our sweet Gazette dormitory. For those who are not acquainted with that, I will explain the situation in a nutshell. So here we have a housing block that consists 2 rooms, and each room has a volume of 25 cubic meters. We have a maximum number of people in the block, and it's about 4. In general, almost all of us has laptops that are used for gaming purposes from time to time. We have a thermal controller, 1 window per room that usually could be opened within quite a wide angle, let's say 90 degrees, and unfortunately never been closed tightly. So we consider that the smallest angle is phi 0, and it's not equal to 0. So the question is, what angle should be the window opened at in order for persons inside to feel comfy? By the way, if the problem have already been solved, you will never feel anxious yourself, guessing whether the temperature of the room is too hot or too cold. Furthermore, you have a strong argument in a dispute with your colleagues as well. Due to we are making a mathematical sophisticated theory, the 4 factors are under consideration: volume factor, garbage factor, pandemic factor, and outside temperature one. Let's deal with them one by one. So let's start with the easiest one, volume, aka open door factor. Apparently, if the larger volume of room we have, the more heat is required to keep the temperature stable. So we can say that the optimal window angle is inversely proportional to the volume value. That perfectly fits with equation border conditions, because we can assume the situation when draft occurs. It means that the doors and the window are open simultaneously, and hence the volume is equal to the volume of the whole building, and we can consider it as an infinite. So the optimal angle at that situation will be obviously phi 0, the minimal one. The garbage factor could be understood only by Gazette students, because as you know, there are garbage collectors that usually come to do their work, and based on my experience, they come at 1 a.m. So starting from this time, you have to choose between open window and sleep. As for me, I'm used to going to bed at that time, so my window is closed up until I'm waking up at 8 a.m. Which you can see on the equation at the bottom corner of the slide. It was a sunny, quiet January day when the Order 44 was executed. And at one moment, the number of people in our housing block increased from 1 to 4 drastically. So here you can see the plot that represents number of people per time on the left hand. And on the right hand, you can see the dependence of window angle on month. As you can see, there is a slight peak, but it was connected with our cheerful first meeting with my neighbors. And actually, it was a dumb mistake because I got a flu at that time. In case to escape that in the future, it would preferable to expel this peak from our model, which you can see in the bottom of the slide. The equation shows that the curve on the right hand could be quite well approximated with a logistic function. Furthermore, it has gaming preferences of your neighbors, and it's quite more general than I expected. So the last one is external outside temperature factor. According to the Fourier heat transferring law, the speed of heat flow is proportional to the gradient of temperature. In other words, it is directly proportional to the difference between outside temperature in the street and inside temperature in the room. So the lower value of the outside temperature is, then the flow speed is higher. And then the optimal window angle should be almost phi zero. According to the mean temperature of year in Moscow per time, we can reveal that basically the temperature spans between -30 to 30 centigrade. Hence, to simplify the situation, we can approximate the solution via linear function, which you can see on the right corner of the slide. So it shows the dependence between angle of window and outside temperature value. And then we can come up to the conclusion. We can compose all factors in one equation, which you can see on the slide. It is parametrical and unbiased, and it could be used in the future if you want to tackle the problem in one day. Basically, and furthermore, it was proved that it was proved experimentally when the presentation was being written. I did it myself. Thank you for your attention, and don't forget to try the bullshit yourself. Take a step to make your studies more efficient. And now I'm ready for your questions.
Thanks, Anwar. It only remains to apply the acquired knowledge in practice. However, life is not about problems and all. Firstly, it's about communications and relationships. The next reporter will tell us about the relations between objects and people. Deputatova, please, you are welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Deputatova Anna, and I'm a third-year undergraduate student of the Moscow State University. I specialize in biophysics as well, but today my work is not going to be connected with biophysics or medical physics. It's going to be connected with physics and people's relationships. My purpose this evening is to share with you an extremely interesting work written by my friend Vladimir Ivanov, who is also a third-year undergraduate student of Moscow State University. Here is the structure of my talk. First of all, I'm going to start with the introduction, then I'm going to move to the main part, and here on your screen you can see some basic points in this main part, and after all I'm going to end up with the conclusions. Let me start. First, let's start with introduction. The main task of this theory is the qualitative and quantitative description of the human psychology as a single person, as well as interactions between people in society. In this theory, the mental state of a person follows from the interaction of individuals through state fields, the carriers of interactions in which are special quants, as in normal physics. So let us see some methods and basic concepts of this theory. On your screens, you can see a picture, a photo of a person, creature, and a subject. For a qualitative description of the human psychology, we need to build a basis with which we can build all the processes in the following theory: man and man, creature, creature and subject, and man and subject. To begin with, it's worth deciding how the classification and division into groups, person, creature, and subject occurs, since these concepts are really fundamental for our theory. In what follows, we will assume that any organic system which is capable of thinking and awareness is a person. Any system which is not capable of awareness and cannot think, cannot make decisions, it's a creature. And a matter that doesn't have the properties of living things will be considered as an object. Now we will introduce a few more basic concepts that are necessary for a qualitative description of the state field of our theory. To describe all the phenomena, we will share two types of mood. Good has an anti-sad happy charge, and bad, the body has a sad charge. As you can see on the screen, it's really important to pay attention that anti-set charge is -1, -2, and -3, not like in normal physics. So we cannot build here and kind of, so we cannot think about like it works in normal physics. And also we have a set charge, which is +1, +2, and +3. Let us move to the principles of theory. Firstly, let's look at the most likely mood interactions. To describe this interaction, consider two bodies, A and B, from the human group. We will assume that body B is in a sad state, therefore it creates a sad field around itself, with the help of which it tries to interact with other bodies. As soon as the fields of state intersect, the interaction of the moods of the two bodies begins. Let us describe two different cases in which the body A has different kind of charge. The first case is when the body A has -2 charge. After the interaction, body A goes into a bad state and body B into a neutral state. An example of such an interaction is the support of a friend after a difficult life situation. Well, so here on your slide, you can see again the body A, which has -2 charge, and the body B, which has +1 charge. They interact with each other, and that's how you can imagine the real life situation. Let us move to another example, to another case, when the charge of body A is +1. So here on your screen, you can see this case when the body A has +1 charge and the body B has also plus something charge, +2 or +3. It depends on our scale, which was before in the previous slide. Okay, let us move and see some interactions between these two bodies. When these bodies will try to interact, the mood of both of them will become sadder or happier than it was before, as we can either add charges or subtract them. For example, when two sad people meet, they can either decrease their sadness or increase it. So here again, the interaction between these two bodies. Now, as well, as it happens in all real theories, we can make some predictions. The first prediction is going to be about like normal physics. The initiation of the redistribution of the sadness charge in the system is the body with the greatest side charge. Okay, so let us move to another point, and it's going to be subjects and creatures. So I'm going to describe the interactions between subject and creature. Well, for this, consider an example from life. Imagine a situation in which person A has a sad charge and subject B is in the field of a body A. As soon as interaction person-subject arises, body A reflects its sad charge onto the subject, thus charging it. After such interaction, the subject receives a stable sad charge. An emotional connection arises between the initiation of the subject, so it's a person, and the subject. In the future, the initiator can feed his sad charge from the subject with the help of this connection. For example, you buy yourself cutest stuffed toy when you're in a great mood, and when you're in a bad mood, you can take this toy and your mood will be better. So here's the description of this process. Again, we interact with the stuffed toy, and if you're in a bad mood, this stuffed toy will help you to be happier. That's how it works. Okay. Let's discuss now the differences in interactions between different groups of bodies. Person is able to participate in all interactions, create fields. The creature participates in all interactions but cannot project an instant mood onto the subjects. The main difference between the charge of a creature and the charge of a person is that creature seeks to maintain its mood, and its psychology as a whole is less mobile than psychology of a man. Now I'm ready to move to conclusions. And all in all, I would like to say that I was trying to build a theory which was based on some basic physical principles and also illustrate them with some interesting examples from real life. Almost every process in our life and interaction can be described with the help of fundamental laws of nature, not only physics, but other parts of science as well. I hope you really like this topic, and now my topic has come to its logical end. Thank you for your attention, and in case you have any questions, I would be really glad to answer them.
Thank you, Anna. I have a question. Can you make only one prediction which is based on your theory?
Well, when you see the slide with predictions on your screens, I said predictions, but I guess I made only one of them. Okay, another one can be that an isolated system, uh, in an isolated system, the sum of set charges is constant, as well as it works in normal physics. So probably it's another important prediction that I can make.
Thank you. It was pretty nice and cute presentation. Thank you, Anna, once again. The next report will be really topical and significant because it's about us. Greetings to Elizaveta Murga and her theory of students' evolution.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Murga Elizaveta, and I'm a third-year undergraduate student of Moscow State University Physics Department. I specialize in biophysics. Today, I'm going to present to you my theory of students' evolution at the Faculty of Physics. This theory is based on many years of practice and real facts about the development of students at the faculty, which gave it the following name: practical, real evolution of the system student at the faculty, or short form PRESS-F. Its main purposes are to identify the general patterns of students' evolution at the Faculty of Physics and the criteria for it. Today, as part of my theory, we will discuss the following topics: founders of the theory, postulates of PRESS-F theory and their interpretation, criteria of students' evolution, and discuss the results. Dear colleagues, let's start. Shall we? Okay. In my theory, I relied on the work of two great people. You see their portraits on the screen. You've met one of them at school and the other one at university. Please tell me names of these two researchers. Any ideas?
The first one is Charles Darwin.
Yeah, all right. And the second one, you must show him. No ideas, real?
Maybe it is Igor Vladimirovich Mitin.
Yeah! Yeah, this is indeed Charles Darwin, the founder of the theory origins of species, and Igor Vladimirovich Mitin, who experimentally found that by the end of the bachelor's degree, 20% of students leave the faculty. Let's move on the postulates. Each theory is based on some postulates, so I present to you postulates of the theory PRESS-F. The student is a restless, stable system. Self-organization as the main characteristic of the student and the group. The transfer of knowledge takes place with the help of genes of physicists, briefly gene physics. Each student has their own ways of obtaining, fixing, and applying gene physics. The student evolves only through natural selection. Let's analyze each postulate. The first of them, the student is a restless, stable system. Here we can draw an analogy with the circuits from radio physics. In nonlinear circuits, the total response is not equal to the sum of responses. Thus, the number of hours that students spend in studying a subject during the semester is not equal to the hours spent on the subject during one night of preparation. From this, we can make a logical conclusion that the student becomes a rest system only when leaving the faculty. Also, the student is characterized by a certain stability, which is proportional to the probability of getting out of bed by the first couple. According to statistics, the probability of staying in bed increases under a number of conditions. The first couple is lecture, today is Saturday, and lectures are recorded on Teach-In, especially reduces the stability of such phenomenon as distant education. Let's move on to the second postulate, self-organization as main characteristic. The self-organization of the group takes place approximately on 31st of the August of the first year during the faculty. This process continues for 2 weeks and ends with a stage called posvyat. Then begin the process of self-organization of the student, which includes 3 stages: study stasis, idiota adaptation, and evolution. This process is periodic and repeats 1 time per semester. The first stage, study stasis, characterizes a student's desire to study at the Faculty of Physics. The study stasis is regulated both by the student himself and by external factors. If a student loses the ability of self-regulation of study stasis, then the external regulators of pravkomist, starosist, and compartment Gabachka begin to actively influence him. The second stage, idiota adaptation, is faced by each student at the beginning of semester when new subjects are appeared. With a favorable outcome, the student goes from state of idiot to state of adapted by all subjects during the semester. The third stage is evolution. This stage is the most important, but also the most difficult in the development of the student. Since this stage, several parameters are checked at once: the degree of restlessness, the stability, and the measure of students' adaptation in each subject. The third stage occurs every 6 months and lasts from 3 weeks to 2 months. In other way, this period called session. In this stage, you can also include the test week stage, which also checks all parameters of the student system, but more lowly. And let's talk about how the adaptation and evolution of the student take place in the third postulate. The transfer of knowledge takes place with help of genphysis. As you know, any information has a carrier. In our case, information is knowledge of subjects at the Faculty of Physics, and the carrier, physical genus, genphysis. There are 3 groups of genphysis: positive, knowledge of basic subjects and experience of teachers and higher undergraduate student; neutral, knowledge of human size and physical education; and negative, knowledge about the ways of rolling, scoring, and flexing instead of studying. The accumulation of genphysis takes place at the stage of idiota adaptation. From each subject, as a faculty student pays specific genphysis. For example, nuclear gene, math gene, biogene, and so on. When the number of positive genphysis is checked at the stage of evolution. If there are enough of them, more than 50%, the restless student evolves further. If not, it risks to become an arrest system and leave the faculty. An interesting fact of the expression of genphysis is the negative genphysis at the session stage can pass themselves off a false positive, and thus lead the student to a successful evolution without 50% of positive genphysis. But false positive genphysis can be opened by a faculty active non-educational regent. Then the student's risk of becoming the rest system is increased again. The remaining 2 postulates should be clear for you from the life experience, and we will discuss only a couple of their features. The 4th postulate. Each student has their own ways of obtaining, fixing, and applying genphysis. Genphysis are obtained both from teachers and from students. The success of obtaining and application of genphysis is determined at the stage of evolution, and there is a set of genphysis, the fiction of which is higher than 80%. Such set is called a cathedral and determines the further development of the student at the faculty. According to the 5th postulate, the student evolves only through natural selection. Natural selection takes place during a session by each subject. This phenomenon is called an exam and is characterized by a maximum check of all the parameters of the student in the subject. As a result of natural selection is that the least adapted students go to a rest state. From the 5 postulates of press F follow the criteria of evolution of the student. So, if the system is not completely rest and sometimes you're in a stable state, maintain a good level of all 3 stages of self-organization in yourself and in your group. You have more than 50% of positive gen physics in subjects and have successfully passed at least one natural selection, then you are definitely an evolving student at the Faculty of Physics. Congratulations. As a result of my work, the postulates of the theory of students' evolution were formulated and the criteria for the evolving students were determined. My theory is based on the experience of observing myself and my colleagues for 3 years. Press F will be obtaining and update as the course progress and tested experimentally on the next generations of students. With my theory, I want to show that each of us has our own path of evolution at the faculty, the direction and success of which depends only on you. Thank you all for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Yes, I have a question. I really like your presentation. That's so cute.
Thank you.
My question is going to be, why did you choose the theory of evolution for your theory? In fact, another theories are existing.
Yeah, yes, indeed, there are several theories of student diversity. The first of them is nucleatism, or the theory of creation all students by higher nuclear power. It proves that all students are created in the image and likeness of a nuclear scientist and are only slightly different from him. But to refute this theory is not difficult. Let's go from the opposite. Let's assume that we are all from nuclear scientists. So should already know nuclear physics perfectly from the moment we enter the faculty. But as practice shows, there are students who don't know nuclear physics even after second year. Therefore, this theory is definitely not suitable. Next, the theory of transphysism, which postulates that all physicists come from one common physicist. For example, quantum scientists from first quantum scientist, biophysics from first biophysics, and so on. This theory is already more rational, but doesn't explain the appearance of girls in the faculty. After all, it's assumed that the origins of physics were men. And finally, the evolutionism of Darwin and Meeting. This theory states that in the physics department, under the influence of natural selection and the struggle for knowledge, only students have studied physics best survive. This theory is tested by many years of experience and divides students only by the desire to develop in knowledge. That's why I chose this theory.
Thank you for your answer. That was really full.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizaveta. If I had known this before, I probably would have studied better, but it's too late for me to change. By the way, the next report is exactly about being late. Let's greet Kasaeva Tatiana with her relevant theory.
Good evening. So let me show my screen. Let me show my screen. The whole screen, I suppose. So, good evening. My name is Hasaeva Tatiana, and I'm going to represent you the theory of being late. So here, we consider simple situation, a model situation in case of general theory of relativity. We know that time is a special value that, as we believe, behaves in a strange and unpredictable way. So in some cases, it can be strange and unpredictable. So we consider this model situation in case of general theory of relativity to see how time behaves there. And then we have to take into account some additional conditions that make any person, to be late. After that, we have to calculate the possibilities of this condition taking place and finally obtain the results and make some conclusions, according to which a person is more likely to be late than to be on time. What is time? As we know now, time is the fourth dimension space-time continuum model that completes our vision of the universe. But several decades ago, Albert Einstein was the first to think that time is a special value that in some circumstances flows in a different way. If a body moves at sublight speeds, we know that time for it, in its opinion, moves slower than for other objects that don't move at all. So we know the dependence well now. And let us consider this situation in a common way. First, let us take a student that is going to be late for a lesson and implicate the theory of the general theory of relativity, to this situation. The speed of the student has to grow exponentially the more he hurries. So the faster he goes, the slower, according to the theory, he is. So the main dependence, I'm not sure you can see it. So everybody sees the formula. The main dependence is the following, and we see that this value under the square root is close to the 1, when the speeds are too low. So if the student is not in a hurry enough, we can see that this theory doesn't work. Then why is he late? We have to take into account some additional circumstances. First of all, we know that what happens? First of all, we know that haste makes waste. The more he hurries, the less effective it would be. So we can see that the hurry makes the less affection of the process. After that, we have to notify that time is money. More than 62% of the students are poor, and they have to take every piece of time to earn money, to get money. So even if he's going to be late, he would also take his time to make money first. But there is also the 38% possibility of this situation not taking place. And the person who is not poor, who is rich, is usually happy. And happiness takes no account of time. We know that a happy person does not have time at all. So this dimension disappears in his appearance, in his reference frame. This dimension disappears, and so he doesn't know exactly what time period has passed when he started to move. But there is still from 5 to 10% possibility for him to be unhappy. Why? A rich person can be unhappy because he could be ill. But we know that time is a great healer. There is still up to 10% possibility for the student to be unhappy, but he will have to take his time to be healed with the help of it. So he will also be late for the lesson because he will take his time again. Finally, we have to conclude that it's a normal and natural situation for a person in a hurry to eventually be late, so not to be on time. But there are still several situations, several considerations, and several factors to be taken into account in future. So we're looking forward to new researches, and thank you for your attention. I'm ready to your questions.
I think there are no questions because the presentation was very clear. Thank you, Tatiana. I hope I will be able to use the given information to hand over my English homework in time. Okay, we will end our conference on light notes. Each one of us has obtained some essential knowledge today, but what actually is knowledge? I give the floor to the next speaker, Predun Vasilisa, to bring us closer to the answer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Predun Vasilisa, and I'm a second-year master student of Physics department. Today, I will present to you the report on quantum philosophy of knowledge. To begin with, I'd like to show you the structure of the report. First of all, there will be an introduction to the model of knowledge of the individual. In the second part, we'll answer the question, is the brain able to perceive any information? Next, let's talk about the highest level of knowledge. And finally, I'll make a conclusion. Let's start, shall we? I'll give you a highly simplified model of knowledge of the individual. Let's imagine it is a nucleus surrounded by circular orbitals. The nucleus consists of the original knowledge and the knowledge acquired from parents under the age of 10 years. In this theory, a person was born not with a blank sheet, but with a certain vision of the world. The brain of each person is individual and consists, in addition to the nucleus, also of its own set of levels, which are circular orbitals. A special indicator of the level of knowledge, or ILK, will indicate the degree of development. From birth, under the age of 10 years, as a rule, the ILK is located in the closest orbital to the nucleus. The rest of the orbitals are only a potential for development opportunities for him. The more a person learns, the higher orbit ILK achieves. Also, knowledge levels are usually represented as a diagram. The levels of knowledge are usually denoted in units of EV. It abbreviated from erudition of Vasi. Vasi was the first experimental object. An individual can move strictly from one level to another and cannot exist between levels of knowledge. Most people, until the end of their lives, exist with such a model. Only a few who have managed to achieve higher level of knowledge are able to free themselves from it. Okay, let's imagine that at the very beginning, our brain is at the basic level of knowledge, or zero level. How to move from the basic level to a higher level of knowledge? In order to raise the level, it needs to transfer, we need to transmit some new information to the brain, and we know how to convey the information. To direct life to the ILK, teaching is light is a set of photons, quantum of information. If the quantum of information collides with the ILK, then the brain will absorb the information and the ILK will move to a higher level of knowledge. In our case, in order for the ILK to move to the next level of knowledge, it needs to transfer 4 EV. That is, if a photon of knowledge that has 4 EV is found in the flow of information and it crashes into our brain, then the brain will absorb the information and the ILK will move to a new level of knowledge. The level of knowledge that follows the basic level is called the first excited state. The brain can't stay agitated for long, and it strives to return to a minimum energy level as soon as possible. An example of this phenomenon is often observed in everyday life and is popularly called "in one ear flew in the other flew out." This is why training and development must be constant. If you stand still, you will eventually degrade. But what will happen? if the brain, which is the basic level of knowledge, is sent a photon of information with 5 eV. If the brain absorbs the entire quantum of information, it would receive 5 eV, but there is no such level with 5 eV. Therefore, his brain will not be able to perceive this information. This is also a common phenomenon. You speak to a person, but they don't understand you and don't seem to hear you. Being at different levels of knowledge, a person can perceive different information. Did you have a feeling that you didn't want to study boring classical literature at school, but it became interesting at the university? Or it happens that many adults suddenly start studying mathematics. Let's look in more detail. Why does this happen? If the brain is the basic level of knowledge, it can absorb 4 eV, 6 eV, or 7 eV. And in the first excited state, it can absorb 2 eV or 3 eV. There is some memes on this theme. Okay, there is also such a phenomenon as a spectrum of information absorption. It is very much like to be teachers at the exams. Throughout the semester, the lecture gradually emitted different quantum of information. And at the exams, he shines with all the flow of information and looks at what the student was able to observe from this. If we decompose the resulting light into a spectrum, we can see black lines on it. It is what the student was able to absorb. Also, it's time to talk about the highest level of knowledge. What will happen if a person learns too much? If the ILK receives so much information that it exceeds the highest level of knowledge of the individual, then the person becomes free, no longer attached to the atom. In this state, a person has risen above the reality, above the childish attitude, the vanity of being, and has reached the level of Zen. Now it's time to make a conclusion. The presented model opens the door to understanding the structure of human knowledge. I hope now you will not be angry with those who don't understand you. Thanks for attention.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, our pseudoscientific conference came to its logical end. We have discussed a lot of important and exciting things. Thanks to all participants for their active work. If there will be any questions, you can contact me, Sergey Pankratov, and I'll refer to you to a particular speaker. Thank you. See you soon and the next conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much.